The ACT Party's treaty bill is inconsistent with Te Tiriti o Waitangi and is a threat to social cohesion, according to the Justice Ministry. But instead of ducking from the criticism, David Seymour is attacking the officials who wrote it. Here's senior political correspondent Jenna Lynch.
Staring down the challenge, David Seymour is resolute in his interpretation of the Treaty of Waitangi, despite officials slamming it.
We have made changes in response to their advice, but fundamentally they believe that the treaty is a partnership. We believe that that is unsustainable and cannot work in a free society.
The main change is to Article 2. It was initially the government will honour all New Zealanders in the chieftainship of their land and property. The starting point for drafting that principle will now be the Crown recognises the rights Hapu and Iwi had when they signed the treaty and will respect and protect those rights. But notes, those rights differ from the rights everyone has only when they are specified in legislation, treaty settlements or other agreement with the Crown, not enough to change the minds of his coalition partners.
It's going to be an aeration of the views through the Public Select Committee. That's where people can sound off on all sides of it. But as I've been really clear, we're not voting or supporting it beyond that.
Of course I'm not going to change their minds. I've made that stance my whole career. Right? I'm not going to change my mind now.
And definitely not winning over Ministry of Justice officials who concluded it reduces Indigenous rights to a set of ordinary rights that could be exercised by any group of citizens. It calls into question the very purpose of the treaty and its status in our constitutional arrangements. It could generate further division, posing a threat to social cohesion, and it's inconsistent with the treaty.
I'm not surprised the Ministry of Justice says that. It's the bureaucracy, the courts, the tribunal have been defining the treaty for the last 50 years and come up with something inherently divisive. The whole purpose of this exercise is to push back against the bureaucracies.
The real question that ACT put into the country, that they want to debate for 6 months suddenly with a very large budget, is did Māori exist before colonisation?
Cabinet agreed to referendum provisions in the bill and invited Seymour to carry out work on how a referendum would be progressed, despite National categorically saying that it will not happen under its watch.
David Seymour and ACT want to go to a full-blown referendum. That isn't going to happen.
It's a total waste of money for government to be pursuing a bill through a select committee process that it has no intention of then passing into law, unless they're willing to change their mind on that.
But Christopher Luxon maintains this is the price of our MMP system.
He's the leader of the National Party. It's not a policy of ours. It's not something that we supported. We don't like it.
And he can't do anything about it because he signed up to it in coalition negotiations, and a breach of that threatens the stability of the government.
Do people really think that David Seymour is going to trigger an election over this?
I think everybody's been really clear that the Prime Minister could just ditch this bill today. It's incredibly divisive.
We're progressing a coalition agreement around the Treaty Principles Bill, a long-standing ACT policy that they want to bring to bill to first reading. That's the agreement that we've got.
That doesn't answer my question. Why are you choosing to breach the treaty rather than breach your coalition agreement?
Environment, and we make pragmatic trade-offs.
A trade-off between coalition cohesion and social cohesion.
And Jenna, Labor's criticising another ACT MP, this time over gun policy. What's going on?
So Labor's Ginny Anderson, their police spokesperson, was asking some pretty pointed questions in the House today about changes to responsibility for the Arms Act, and particularly whether ACT's Nicole McKee would have that. She was basing it off a document from back in May where Cabinet agreed to transfer the administration of the Arms Act from the Minister of Police to McKee, who is the Associate Minister of Justice with responsibility for firearms. Now, the document made specific mention of Section 74A of the Arms Act, and that one gives ministers the ability to decide whether or not specific guns are prohibited or not. So Anderson was drilling down into whether that gave McKee unilateral decision-making as to which guns would be prohibited or not in this country. Now, Nicole McKee is a former gun lobbyist. She was the president of the Council of Licensed Firearms Owners before becoming an MP. She was one of the most vocal opponents to the gun law changes that Labor made after the March 15 terror attack. She says Labor has got this all wrong.
I think it's quite concerning that Labor are out there scaremongering amongst the public about what they think my intent is, especially when I haven't actually come up with anything for them to look at or even debate policy on. They've just made a whole lot of personal attacks based on the fact that I have a firearms safety background.
The final decision over who will have what responsibility for the administration of the Arms Act under the new regime is still to be decided by Cabinet.